Yeah, I do actually split it kind of into the year. So 6 months I'll work on an Irish village, and then 6 months I'll work on one of the darker ones.
It definitely must be a process though, because some people struggle to do one book a year, let alone like one book maybe in their lifetime. You're doing 2 books a year. Your backlist is starting to grow.
Yeah.
I mean, your writing process, whatever you've figured out, like it works for you. Like however you do your page count, word count goals, it works.
Well, luckily, I had like 10 years of writing before they started asking me. It started out with, one book a year, and then he would throw in novellas. So it was one book and a novella, and then it was the first series and novellas, and then the second series, and that's it. I'm tapped. I won't accept more than 2.5 a year. And there are times where I think, oh, I want more time with this. But you can also, as a writer, like, drag your feet a lot and waste a lot of time. So this just forces you just have to keep in the groove.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a daily word count goal or page count goal? I mean, how do you, I mean, you have that deadline, you're approaching it. How do you keep on track?
Yeah. My books are contracted, the darker ones at like 100,000 words and the lighter ones 75 to 90. And so what I do is just mathematically say, okay, I want like 3 months to rewrite. And so I need to do this many words in the first 3 months in order to have the second, half of the year to rewrite it. So it's a word count goal. It's usually between, a first draft, sometimes maybe even 1,200 words is good, up to 2,000. And then I know that I can have a rough draft in time to rewrite. So word count goals do help me. If you do a time goal, you might just stare at the screen for, whatever the time is.
Yeah, those minds won't sweep themselves.
Yeah. And what's exciting is sometimes you finish your word count goal really early, and then I don't let myself go back and reread the story and work on it unless I've progressed it, because otherwise you can get like stuck of just rewriting everything you've already written.
That was gonna be my question of, do you finish the full draft before you go back and edit? Because you have those details that I love as a reader where I'm going, is this a red herring? Is this the kill? I mean, what's going on over here? And every time you have your big reveal at the end, I'm satisfied. And that's one of those, you leave the breadcrumbs throughout. And so I'm always fascinated when books are well plotted or they have those details like that, because to me, it demonstrates just great writing and a great analytical thought process when it comes to mysteries, like knowing exactly how to break up the narrative so that when you have that big reveal of, oh, I missed that. Of course. Because you do that. And I mean, it's very, it's very impressive.
I do a lot of rewriting, and I never turn something in until I get it the best it can be. And it is because like it is my heart, it is my work, and I put a lot into it, but it doesn't always feel like work because that's my baby, right? And the characters are so real to me too that I want to do them justice. And it can take sometimes multiple drafts to like get everything right and figure out like how everything fits. Although it's funny you say that because my mother like called me once and she goes, she opened the curtain. Is that a clue? I'm like, oh my God, no, she was just opening the curtain because she wanted to see what it was like outside or something. But you have to remember that as a writer, like everything you write, they're going to think is a clue.
Oh, absolutely.
Sometimes that's funny.
Oh, it's hysterical. I keep track of all of the names, and whenever a character never appears again, I'm going, did they get killed? What's going on? And it's one of those, they just ran into them at the grocery store. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's not a red flag or something of, oh, the killer struck again. But I always assume something's going on.
Yeah.
I love that we're on the same page. You're like, you two need to get together and chat about books.
Exactly. She tilted her head. Oh my goodness. But it is fun as a writer to sneak clues in where people aren't expecting them too. Yeah. So I understand why readers are paying attention to everything that way.
Everything's an Easter egg. Everything has potential.
Yeah, exactly.
But I love when you say tilting the head. I'm like, that's when all of a sudden she's looking this way and something happens over there.
Exactly. Yeah, you're kind of like a magician. It is sleight of hand. Like readers pay attention here, and I'm doing this here, and you don't know.
So your editor is the one who said, oh, why don't you try Cozy Mysteries? And I'm fascinated with this because to me, you come across as very well educated when it comes to the world of cozy mysteries. Like, you know exactly what readers want. Like, you're able to capture it so well. And I would have just assumed, like, oh, she's an expert writing a cozy mystery. It never would have occurred to me that someone would ask you about cozies, and then you would have to learn and then create the book. To me, I thought you were coming to the page knowing exactly what's going on in the world of cozies, because that's how it feels.
I'll be honest, I had never read a single cozy when he asked me that. And that's why it scared me a little bit. And then I started reading some, and I was just used to reading darker things and darker mysteries, and so I read a couple, and it's not that they weren't good. I just thought, this is not my style of reading, and I knew that the only way I could pull this off, and I didn't know how people would take it, but I had to write a cozy that I would want to read.
Yeah.
And then I was really happy because usually they are amateur sleuths, but Siobhan O'Sullivan in the Village series becomes a guard in book 3.
Yeah.
And that was something I had to bounce off my editor because that's breaking kind of the cozy world rules. But I feel like I do break a lot of the cozy rules, but it gives enough, hopefully, for cozy readers of what they like that, they go with it.
I mean, it kind of reminded me of Monk. He was a former police detective. He has that background. He's a consultant, so he's with the police, but not really.
Yeah.
So, I mean, sometimes we're able to, finagle our way around it and be okay.
Yeah.
But I do love her. She does make me smile, and she is someone... I love how I'm talking about her as if she's real.
She feels so real to me.
She does.
They all do, yeah.
I'm talking about her like, oh, my best friend Siobhan. I was going to say, the reason that I was mentioning her is because she is a very likable character. You're rooting for her. You want her to succeed. You want good things to happen. You not only just solve mystery, but you want her to have a happy life.
Yeah.
So there's something about writing a very likable, relatable heroine that it's one of those, like, I tip my hat to you, because that's not an easy undertaking.
Yeah. And I was reading books on mystery writing when I was panicking that he gave me this, assignment. And that was one of the books I was reading, was really emphasizing. And I've taught a writing workshop for 14 years now, too. And that is the main thing to get readers interested. And sometimes I meet really talented writers, but that's the one thing they haven't clicked in yet, that you have to have a protagonist that people love and want to follow. I guess if they don't love them, it's kind of unlikable, then they have to be fascinated enough to follow that character. But that's who you're taking the journey of the book for, are the characters. And so you have to be able to easily step in and feel their world.
So how do you approach making this multidimensional character feel real, feel authentic, and someone you want to go have a cup of coffee with? Because it is something where I think people do struggle, and even seasoned writers. We had a book the other, a couple months back. I'm going to be very vague. I had a lot of people say, this character is so unlikable. I'm really invested in the mystery. I like this side character, but the unlikable heroine was something that was referenced quite a bit. I wasn't the only one who was getting annoyed at this person, this character. But yours, I mean, I love Siobhan. I'm rooting for her. I'm right there with her. And so I'm just curious what advice you have for people who want to make those lovable, likable leads.
Well, one thing I found funny is that when I was writing as another person that weren't Irish Village mysteries, I feel like some of my characters had the same sarcasm and wit as Siobhan, but because that was an American character, people actually said they didn't like her or the characters. And so I think part of it is Irish people and the beautiful charm and the accent. I think they can get away with a little bit more, and people just like them, and maybe they're reading it in their head and they're hearing the lovely Irish accent and they like that. But for me also, I just had to get in her head, feel like she's real. I think protagonists need to have really high goals. I think they need to have like a special skill. I think they need to have an inner flaw, Achilles heel, and a wound. And what do they love, and what would they, risk things for in their life? And Siobhan, has vulnerability in that, her parents died in the car crash, and now she's taking care of siblings. So I think bringing that kind of empathy to her too. And part of it is she just formed, and there she was, and I like her so much too. And sometimes I feel like, it would be really weird to meet her. Like, I don't even know if she'd like me. Like, it's just so funny.
Well, that was sort of my next question, because those are the details that take a character and add those layers and dimensions. And taking care of the siblings, okay, she's thoughtful, she's generous, she's kind, and all these other adjectives and things start to come to mind. And I'm curious how you kind of land on this is her backstory. So I'm kind of, is she coming to you fully formed? Did you sit down, going, here is her character bio, here's the name? Okay, this is a story that would have happened to her in 5th grade. Like,
Yeah.
how do you come up with those details? Because those are what elevates the character from, this is passable, C plus work, to, okay, you get an A plus, and here are your stars, and here's a gold sticker.
It does kind of evolve, and like by the time it's over, sometimes I don't even remember what all the steps were, but I know like her name came from 2 different Irish people that I knew and loved and put the name together. And so there was like resonance there for me. She has red hair. My mom was a redhead, and my mom had some of that personality. And then some of it was even wish fulfillment. Like, what would I want to be like? You know, I was an actress for a lot of years, so you kind of learn to put yourselves in character. And one acting teacher said, every character is you if the things that had happened in their life happened in your life, right? It's just a matter of, you know, what you learn and who you meet and what your experiences are. So I, you know, part of it was, you know, tips from book, oh, they need special skill or this. And then that's when I gave her, you know, she did some whittling and, you know, because of her, you know, had problems controlling her temper. And then that was taught by her grandfather. And then it just eventually just kind of forms until like you feel them. And like, once I feel them, then that's it. They're kind of off and running on their own. I feel the same way about Dr. Dimpna Wild, and she's my protagonist in the Darker series. Like they're just so real to me, which I know makes me a little crazy, I think, but they're so real.
See, I don't think it's crazy. I think it's really helpful as the writer, because that's why they're jumping off the page. If you don't like them, the reader's not going to like them. If you're bored with them, the reader's going to be going, why am I reading this story? Yeah. So I think your love is what shines through.
And you also have to give them big enough problems, which in murder mysteries is pretty obvious, right? You have to give them big enough problems, and they have to care enough that, like, you know, they're busy, they're forced into action. And we like to see how people handle, you know, diversity and problems thrown at them. So that can bring a character to life too.
I am curious, because you had to learn about cozy mysteries and you mentioned doing research. If you had a favorite book or favorite resource when it came to cozy mysteries, or this is something that totally helped me when I was undertaking my mystery writing for the first time, if there was something like that that sort of stayed with you.
I think most of it was you know, leaning on like old Agatha Christie's or Murder, She Wrote, Jessica Fletcher, just trying to think. Sometimes when I'm stuck, I just think, oh, what feels fun to me? Like, sometimes you get so like concentrating, and then you can feel like something's wrong with a book, and then I said, oh, well, I'm not enjoying it because nothing fun is going on. So what topic do I want to spend time with? But really most of it came from my love of Ireland and Irish people and how they talk. Like, when I handed in the first book, my editor emailed me and goes, I didn't know it was going to be so Irish.
Even though it's
funniest thing anybody ever said to me. So he thought I was going to have like an American character go over, and I considered it, but then I thought, you know, it's the Irish people I love. Like, let's make them all Irish. So that's been a fun evolution.
That's hysterical. They wanted something set in Ireland, and it was very Irish.
Yeah, that's. Oh, and I also would have copy editors because I use a lot of Irish slang. And again, I fell in love with that. They'll say, I'm doing my messages, and it means they're shopping.
Okay.
And I would have copy editors email me and say, can't you just say they went shopping? And I'm like, no, I can't. Like, I want people to pick up on that. And maybe if they go to Ireland and they hear somebody say, I'm doing my messages, they're like, I know what that means.
I always have those moments where I'm going, I think this is what this is referring to. Or I'll do the double take of, okay, I need to Google this. There was one, it was takeaway instead of takeout.
Yeah.
That was one that caught my attention.
Yeah.
I forget what book it was in, but there was that one little reference. I'm going, does this mean takeout? Like you're getting takeout to go home and eat?
Yeah. And to me, I fell in love with that. Like, oh, we say this and you say that. It's just so much fun.
It's nice that you had the personal experience and connections, because otherwise trying to learn all that from scratch, I mean, that would be really difficult.
And actually, I thought the hardest thing when I realized it was going to be a cozy was like not swearing, because in Ireland it's just flavored with everything, and it's not even said in anger all the time. It's just they're thrown in as adjectives. And but I was also allowed to use words that in Ireland are curse words, But here, we don't use them, so they're not. So I was able to also get away with a little. Although I've lightened up. Book 1 had more than the rest of the series.
You're like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You Americans over there, look at this. I mean, that actually went right over my head because that is something that I do pick up on when I'm reading a cozy mystery, and all of a sudden you're going, okay, wasn't expecting the character to say that. But because of maybe, again, the slang, my eyes just kept going. I didn't have that, oh, okay, like moment of pause.
Yeah.
Because usually that's exactly what happens. I'm going, okay, wasn't expecting to see that right there. But I didn't have that with your books at all. I just kept going. I just kept reading.